What is going on? We are back with another Shadowlands Season 4 video, and in today's video we are going to be going over the new raid system being added in Season 4, and it's called the Fated Raids, or Fated Raid System, whatever you want to call it, right? So basically, rather than implementing a whole new raid into Season 4 for patch 9.2.5, whether it was like a 3-boss raid or a 2-boss raid, whatever it was, Blizzard decided to try something new. They wanted you to do old raids, but they would be current difficulty and give you current item level gear. Not to mention, they added affixes to the raids themselves. So it wouldn't just be the same old raids that you've done before, that you farmed endlessly if you farmed each raid endlessly. They're going to have a little niche to them, a little, nuance to them. To make them a little bit different, a little bit more challenging, or maybe a little bit more easy. Whatever you think of the affix, right? So let's get into it, right? So basically, Castle Nathria, Sanctum of Domination, and Sepulcher of the First Ones will be on a weekly rotation of the Fated Raid schedule. As we know, Castle Nathria will be first, Sanctum of Domination will be second, and then Sepulcher of the First Ones will be the next one. And then it'll do it again, and then we're pretty sure after that all 3 of the Fated Raids will be open after 6 weeks, and all of them will be fated for the entire time. So you can't go back and do the normal raids, you can only do them unfated. Probably will be changed by the end of the expansion, before Dragonflight comes out, but yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. Like, what is it, right? So basically, if Castle Nathria, as you can see in this picture here, it has the Fated Raid mark, so it's currently the week for Castle Nathria. If you ran into Castle Nathria, whether it was on normal, heroic, or mythic, you cannot do Castle Nathria as it was in patch 9.0 at the beginning of the expansion. It would be fated. So it's not a new difficulty, it's not the fated difficulty, but every single difficulty will become fated. And then there'll be affixes, as we'll go through later on what the affixes are. There'll be affixes for that raid. But the fact that Sanctum and Sepulcher are not fated means that if you ran into the raid portal for those raids, they would not be fated. So you could actually go and do Sanctum as it was in 9.0, or you could go do Sepulcher as it is in 9.2, right? But the next week, Sanctum will be the fated raid, and then you actually can go back and do Castle Nathria as it was in 9.0 without the affixes, the difficulty it was then, etc. Now there are some cool things that become of this for higher end mythic guilds or heroic guilds that sell the raid. I'll explain that in a little bit. But yeah, so let's get into it, right? So we go down, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, the item level is actually increasing. So they give us the Sepulcher of the First Ones one. So as it currently stands, Raid Finder is 239, and then obviously Lords of Dread, Raglan, and the Jailer give 246. Or if we look at Mythic, 278 for all the bosses except Raglan, Lords of Dread, and the Jailer, which give 285. But in when it becomes fated, the gear will go from, for Mythic, will be 304 for every boss, and then Jailer, Lords of Dread, and Raglan will be 311. Now, that will be the case for every single raid. This is not Sepulcher. This is not Sepulcher only. So even though Castle Nathria gear is like 184, when it becomes fated for Mythic, it'll be 311 and 304 as well. So that means that you can get your best in slot gear from all 3 raid types, from all 3 raids, right? So if you're a Brewmaster Monk like me, you'll get your RDM and your Aegis, the 2 trinkets from Sanctum, as they're the best trinkets in the game tank-wise. You will, be getting your Vein Rippers. You'd get your cache of acquired treasures from Zymox in Sepulcher of the First Ones for damage. And then, there's maybe some gear that is really good from Castle Nathria, etc., right? So you can build a loadout for your gear from all 3 raids, which is a pretty cool system, right? Like, you're not being forced into only getting trinkets from one raid or vice versa. Now, some of you might be a little bit confused, right? Because there is this weekly system of raids. So so Castle Nathria will be the first week, and then you have to wait 2 whole weeks to go back into Castle Nathria. So for an example, Sanctum will be the second week. I will have to wait 2 full weeks to go back into Sanctum. So if I didn't get my Vein Ripper, I would have to wait 2 full weeks to go back in and have an attempt at getting my Vein Ripper from Painsmith. But that's actually not the case. Blizzard had really thought about this. I'm going to skip over this part because this is basically world bosses. It's just saying that the world bosses will become faded based off of which raid is faded. And they're all right here. But yeah, who cares? We don't care about world bosses. They're not that important. But here is how gear is going to work in Season 4 faded raids. Basically, you will be getting a quest. And the first week, you'll have a quest in which you have to collect 30 coins from each boss that you kill. And once you collect these 30 coins, you will then get an item in which you can buy any piece of gear from any raid in Shadowlands. So after 3 weeks, if I do not have a Vein Ripper, I can go and buy a Vein Ripper at 285 mythic item level. That's really, really cool. So if you're a melee DPS, you can buy your Gavel, you can buy your Old Warrior Soul, even though it was just nerfed pretty heavily. If you're a mage, there might be, you might be able to buy your first sigil, right, from Pantheon, and you don't have to worry about it dropping. You can buy your best in slot gear, which will feel really, really nice. But that actually becomes less. So it's not like you have this 3-week grind. So the second time you do the quest, you only need 20 tokens in order to buy this coin that will then get you a piece of gear. And then the third time you do it, it'll only take 10. And like I said, each time you kill a boss, you will get a coin that goes towards your quest. But that's not how it's going to work for all of the gear, right? Because you can only get 3 times. As you can see here, it's a 3-part quest line, which means you can only choose 3 pieces of gear from the raids. So you kind of want to work it out, right? If I want the polearm from the 9 in Sanctum of Domination, that's the 3rd boss. That's pretty easy to kill. So I might not buy it, even though it might be my best in slot item, because it's very easy to kill and it's very easy to farm. Whereas if an item was from Fate Scribe, right? If I want the Weave of Time Warped Fates, if I wanted that, I might think about buying that instead of my weapon, because my guild might be way less likely to kill Fate Scribe multiple times every single time the Fated week is up, or we might skip it, right? Because he's an annoying boss to deal with. So it's really, you really have to think about it. I personally don't think there's really any wrong answer. You just buy the gear that you want, and you just farm the gear that you don't have, right? But this is a really good system because it allows people just to target their gear, which I think Blizzard really wanted to intend for, to kind of remove this bad luck when you're aiming for a specific piece. Like for me on my monk, I don't have the cache of acquired treasures from Zymox, and I've killed Zymox like 8 times. I've seen it drop once, literally only once, and I need it. It's the best in slot simmed DPS item for Brewmaster Monk, so if I wanted to parse or whatever, I can't because I don't have that trinket. Now, you are saying, other than gear, what do you get out of faded raids? Well, you get a ton actually out of faded raids. So obviously there are a whole bunch of new achievements, but we're going to talk about those achievements rather than talking about each individual one. We're going to talk about it down here. So there are 3 new meta achievements. So when you complete every raid on faded difficulty, either it's normal, heroic, or mythic, it will go towards this quest. And once you complete this quest, you get the green slime mount. Let's see if this actually takes us to it. It does. You'll get the green slime kitty mount that everyone voted for, right? It's pretty sick. Let's go back. So you want to make sure you at least complete every single raid once on Faded. That means killing every boss. You can't skip bosses. You can't sit out bosses. You have to kill every boss at least once on Faded difficulty, as you can see from the achievements here. Now for heroic, you get a title. I think that's pretty lame. I think these two should be swapped, but I understand why they're not, because normal raiders want the mount as well, and sometimes they can't get into it. That's why the AOTC mount is kind of controversial. But anyway, Now, when you do Mythic, which is obviously the highest level, you get portals to each of the raid instances, which is really cool. It's like the dungeon portals that they added in Season 3, I think it was, or the end of Season 2, I forget. Yeah, the end of Season 2. It's the dungeon portals, right? Like, that's really cool for the raid. Say, you know, next expansion, you don't have the Sylvanas mount or you don't have the Jailer mount, you can just instantly portal to the raid and begin to do it, right? That's a really cool thing. Now, obviously, if you complete Mythic fully on all 3 difficulties, you will get both of these achievements as well. You don't have to go in and complete it on Heroic and on Normal. I'm, like, pretty sure, because that's how it always works, right? Like, if you kill Mythic Jailer, you get ahead of the curve, right? Like, it's not like you have to go in and then do it on Heroic. But yeah, honestly, I think this is going to be really cool. This entire Season 4 idea revolves around tuning, right? If the raids are tuned very difficult, where you have to actually progress the raid, it will fail. Because 2-night-a-week guilds, 3-night-a-week guilds do not have time to fully re-progress Castle Nathria, and then have to wait 2 full weeks to re-progress it, right? Like, they just don't have it. So the tuning has to be made where you can full clear it in 1 raid night. In my personal opinion, in around 3 hours, a average cutting edge guild should be able to fully clear this very easily, because this is for fun. There's no cutting edge, there's no Hall of Fame, there's no ahead of the curve, none of that. It's all for fun. So it should be pretty easy. I think going in and blasting the raid would be a great thing to do for Blizzard. I think the player base would really, really like that if they did it as well. But yeah, that's basically all you need to know. There are some affixes here. I really haven't gone into them. I don't think they're going to be that crazy to think about. I think most of them are just like right here, increased damage, increased healing, increased absorbs, right? Things like that. I'm assuming most of them will do that. Like this one increases your movement speed. But yeah, so they're just going to give you a buff for doing something, which is cool, right? Bosses will die faster. Bosses like Sludgefist, Guardian, and like Halandris will be like very easy bosses because they are damage checks. Obviously a little bit of a mechanics checks as well, but they are damage checks. So having an increase, like 25% increased damage, right? Like, you're just going to blast the boss. When you get this buff, you're going to lust, pop all your cooldowns, and blast the boss, you know? But yeah, let me know what you guys think about Faded raids and how Blizzard's going about Season 4. Would you have preferred a brand new raid? Or do you like the fact that they're using their assets and their tools and their dev time towards Dragonflight and just giving us this cool little system that you don't really have to do if you don't want to do? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.